They're just idiots.
What? Do they get the facts wrong? Is that it?
They don't get the facts wrong. They just going to be negative all the time.
Okay.
They're always going to play the bad cop, and they both are idiots.
Right. Oh, all right.
Basketball is a game of passion and unmatched intensity, and no one embodied those fiery emotions better than Charles Barkley. Known for his bold personality, Barkley was never one to shy away from voicing his opinions. Whether you loved him or hated him, one thing about Barkley was crystal clear. He didn't mince words, especially when it came to players he didn't like. Let's dive into the 6 basketball players Charles Barkley couldn't stand and discover the moments and controversial comments that made it personal. Bruce Bowen, the defensive scourge Barkley couldn't stand. Bruce Bowen is no stranger to controversy. Widely considered one of the best defensive players of his era, his lockdown defense was overshadowed by one glaring issue: the way he slid under shooters' feet just as they landed. Charles Barkley took that personally, calling Bowen out publicly for what many viewed as dangerous and dirty tactics. Bowen wasn't playing defense. He was playing try to injure somebody, Barkley said bluntly during an interview on TNT. As a player who thrived in tough physical basketball situations, Barkley's belief in fair competition made Bowen's sneaky style unacceptable in his eyes. For Barkley, Bowen's approach wasn't smart defense, it was a disgrace. The disdain didn't stop there. Barkley often joked about how Bowen wouldn't have lasted a game in the rough and tumble 1980s and 1990s NBA, saying, "If Bowen tried sliding under people back in our day, someone would have sent him flying into the second row." Fans of the San Antonio Spurs may have loved Bowen's hard-nosed defense, but for Barkley and many players, it became a symbol of what was wrong with modern basketball. Bowen's calculated fouls earned him a permanent place on Barkley's least favorite player list, a spot that may never fade in NBA history. Karl Malone, the rival Barkley, could never fully respect. Karl Malone and Barkley were 2 of the best power forwards in NBA history, dominating the league with their raw talent and unmatched physicality. On paper, they seemed like natural allies. But for Barkley, Malone was anything but a friend. The disconnect between their personalities was glaring, and Barkley didn't hold back when talking about it. He often referred to Malone as a black redneck, poking fun at his hobbies like hunting, trucking, and riding his 18-wheeler. Though it sounded like playful teasing, the insult hinted at a deeper divide between the 2 basketball legends. "Me and Karl, we had nothing in common," Barkley said during an interview with Bleacher Report. Barkley, known for his colorful personality, humor, and bold presence, couldn't relate to Malone's quiet, reserved demeanor. While Barkley thrived on charisma and camaraderie, Malone was laser-focused and low-key, a trait Barkley had trouble understanding. Even during their time as teammates on the iconic 1992 Dream Team, Barkley found Malone's lack of connection surprising. "Karl was the guy no one really clicked with," Barkley remarked years later. "In a team full of big personalities, he was the odd one out. He didn't vibe with anybody." On the court, Barkley acknowledged Malone's greatness, but he also didn't shy away from his opinions about Malone as a person. "Listen, Karl's one of the greatest scorers ever," Barkley said on Inside the NBA, his signature humor in full swing, "but man, he's boring. You watch him play and it's like, wow, this guy's amazing. Then you talk to him and it's like watching paint dry." Even though Barkley respected Malone's game, their dynamic was purely professional. Any off-the-court relationship was non-existent. Barkley's loud, entertaining personality clashed with Malone's quiet focus, creating a rivalry that extended far beyond basketball. Their competitive fire may have fueled memorable battles on the hardwood, but one thing is clear: even years later, Barkley wouldn't call Malone a friend. For all his accolades, Malone cemented his place as one of Barkley's least favorite NBA legends, a player Barkley couldn't fully connect with no matter how hard anyone tried. Dennis Rodman, the rebounding genius Barkley couldn't trust. No one was more polarizing in the NBA than Dennis Rodman, and Charles Barkley wasn't exactly a fan of the chaos embodied by the worm. While Barkley admired Rodman's mastery of rebounding, he had zero tolerance for Rodman's antics. His trash talk, his bizarre fashion choices, and his ability to create controversy wherever he went. Rodman was unpredictable, too unpredictable. "I didn't trust him on or off the court," Barkley said during a segment on Sports Illustrated Live. Barkley, who preferred structure and determination, often bristled at Rodman's free-spirited, chaotic nature. For Barkley, that level of unpredictability felt like a distraction rather than an advantage. There was mutual respect for skill, though. Barkley famously called Rodman a mad genius when it came to rebounding, noting his incredible ability to position himself perfectly for every board. The admiration always came with a hint of frustration. Dennis could have done it all, but instead he chose to live in the circus, Barkley quipped on Inside the NBA. Even with Rodman's undeniable talent, Barkley couldn't forgive the constant sideshow that surrounded him. Rodman is a name Barkley will respect, but he'll never trust, and that dynamic makes their relationship one of the more complicated rivalries in NBA history. Bill Laimbeer, the dirtiest player Barkley always despised. If there's one player Charles Barkley openly despised, it's Bill Laimbeer. As the bruising center of the Detroit Pistons' infamous bad boy squad, Laimbeer frustrated and infuriated opponents with his unapologetic physicality. For Barkley, Laimbeer was the antithesis of fair competition. Barkley didn't hold back his thoughts on Laimbeer during interviews. Bill didn't just play dirty. He perfected it. He wasn't out there to win games. He was out there to hurt people, and that's not basketball. Barkley vividly recalled one game where Laimbeer's antics pushed him to the brink. I told him straight to his face, "Touch me again, and we're fighting." And I meant every word, Barkley admitted with a laugh during a TNT segment. For Barkley, the Pistons' aggressive style was more wrestling than basketball, with Laimbeer leading the charge. Every game with him felt like stepping into the ring with Hulk Hogan, Barkley once joked. Despite Laimbeer's success, including 2 championship rings, Barkley never let go of the bitterness, describing him as the dirtiest player in NBA history. Charles Oakley, the enforcer who drove Barkley to anger. Few rivalries in the NBA could match the physicality and fiery exchanges between Oakley and Charles Barkley. If there's one player who could truly rattle Barkley, it was Oakley, who built his reputation as one of the toughest enforcers in basketball history. Oakley didn't just play hard. He thrived on making opposing stars uncomfortable, and often that meant crossing the line into outright intimidation. Barkley and Oakley didn't just clash on the court over fouls. They clashed over pride, and for these two, their competition was far more personal than most traditional NBA matchups. Barkley, a player who was never afraid to throw elbows himself, often mocked Oakley's physical play sarcastically, dubbing him the king of cheap shots. That comment struck a nerve, revealing just how much their battles extended beyond the hardwood. Oakley fired back in a radio interview unapologetically saying, "If Barkley keeps talking, I'll slap him like I did back in the day." And Oakley wasn't bluffing. He had repeatedly reminded Barkley and others of a heated encounter during a practice game where the tension escalated so quickly that punches almost started flying. For Barkley, playing against Oakley felt less like a basketball game and more like stepping into a fight club. In interviews, Barkley described the experience as exhausting and painful, saying, "Oakley hit you first, second, and third. By the 4th hit, you just wanted to swing back. He wasn't a basketball player. He was a linebacker with a jersey on." That level of constant pressure made Oakley an opponent Barkley truly dreaded, even though he would never admit as much during his playing days.
About Charles Oakley.
He hates me.
So, but you can still say something nice about him.
He was a very good player, a very good defender.
The bad blood between them didn't end when they left the game. Years after their retirement, Barkley continued to joke about Oakley's tough guy persona, i.e., suggesting that he should have pursued boxing rather than basketball. Oakley loved hitting people. "I'm still surprised he didn't end up wearing boxing gloves instead of sneakers," Barkley once said with a laugh during an interview. Their animosity reflected the intensity of the NBA in the 80s and 90s, a time when physical battles were an everyday occurrence. Barkley and Oakley weren't afraid to prove who was tougher, but deep down their grudges fueled some of the best rivalries that fans of that era will never forget. Rick Mahorn, the partner turned adversary. Rick Mahorn was another thorn in Charles Barkley's side, and his role as Bill Laimbeer's partner in fouling only added to the frustration. Together, Mahorn and Laimbeer formed the backbone of the Pistons' physical defense that stifled scoring threats, including Barkley himself. Initially, Barkley found Mahorn's personality amusing. At NBA All-Star events, the two shared laughs and brief camaraderie. But things changed when Mahorn stepped onto the hardwood. Rick was great off the court. On the court, no way. He was just another dirty player, Barkley said bluntly during a TNT segment. Mahorn's bruising style forced Barkley into constant battles of strength and endurance. You couldn't take the ball inside without getting hit 5 times by Rick. By the 6th hit, you'd wonder what basketball had turned into football, Barkley joked in an interview. Their rivalry produced iconic moments of near brawls with Barkley, once referring to their clashes as boxing rounds disguised as basketball. Charles Barkley made no effort to hide his opinions, but his disdain for these players wasn't just about personality clashes. It highlighted the gritty, fiery competitiveness of the NBA's golden era. These rivalries remind us that basketball in Barkley's time was as much about pride as it was about winning. For a generation that idolizes Barkley's outspoken personality, these battles aren't just stories. They're proof of how personal basketball can be when legends clash. Barkley's rivalries will always remain an unforgettable part of NBA history. So, I want to know what you guys think as well. Is there a player I missed? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.